Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Mitch McGinley, and he is the founder and CEO of Boutique Fitness Broker. And a little bit about him, he is a former studio owner. He's also a business broker. He sold his studio, and he's here to talk about helping business owners, studio owners prepare their business for exit. And I'm really happy to have him on. He's location independent, and I think a lot of the audience is going to really enjoy this episode. Mitch, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. Briefly chronicle your story, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
I appreciate it. It's a wild story, but my first career was in hotels. I worked my way up through Omni Hotels, and then I left to go work with somebody who is flipping boutique hotels in San Diego. And so I was running the hotels, and he was teaching me the transactional side of it. And all of a sudden, one day, my wife and I got presented with the opportunity to buy our favorite neighborhood yoga studio. My wife had been teaching there for a number of years. She is a star in this world. And it was something that we always wanted to do. And working in hotels, I was working 12, 14, 16-hour days sometimes. And we wanted to start a family, and we wanted to be together. And for the first time, we had the courage to do it. And I left all that, and we bought our little neighborhood yoga studio. And a couple of years later, I started getting a little bored, and I was looking for a new challenge. And so I started doing some consulting work, helping other entrepreneurs in this field with the business customer service side of things. So many of the owners in these industries have a passion for service, whether it's medical or health or spa or fitness. They're all very much the same. There's a passion for service. There's rarely a passion for accounting or tax planning or exit planning. Like, those aren't things that most of us ever thought about when we were starting our businesses. And ultimately, I merged all my worlds to exclusively focus in health and wellness and helping entrepreneurs plan for their exit and then successfully execute it. And it brings me so much joy to see these businesses survive. The owners get to be done with managing people and having a brick and mortar liability. And then maybe they can fly to Europe and hang out with me, and we can talk about all this stuff more.
Yeah. And we'll get into the mechanics of how you've achieved financial, location, emotional freedom. And the next question I have for you is, how is preparing a studio exit different from, say, for example, a doctor listening to this podcast selling his or her practice, or a lawyer? How is it different?
Honestly, it's really not. It's really the same. Your goals are always to maximize your profit while simultaneously, it's so easy to say, but do everything you can to boost your revenue, minimize your expenses, but also, very importantly, make sure that you're compliant in all the ways that you need to be compliant, that your HR stuff is dialed, and that you've got everything very clear on all of your employee benefits that you owe, making sure that you have all of your policies and procedures clearly documented, making sure that all your financial records are really clean and free of personal expenses that are buried in places where nobody's going to be able to believe them. And all of these things are the same. There's a joke that exit strategy is just good business strategy. It's the things we're supposed to be doing all the time. But a lot of times, if you're about to try and sell your business, you might file your tax return a little differently to show as much profit as possible, because what that tax return says is going to matter a whole lot to a bank who is lending a buyer money to buy your business. The last thing I'd say that's ubiquitous across all industries is that the business really cannot rely upon you as the primary person in the day-to-day. And that's something that I think every entrepreneur faces, the day where they have to hire a manager to replace themselves. And that's certainly its own journey, but it's really important to buyers that they believe that the business, the practice, the studio, whatever it is, will continue to be successful after you've left. And so you need to make them believe that. And if that means hiring another manager and making sure that there's someone who's in place running the day-to-day, that can take 6 months or a year to make happen before you can really get what you deserve and get out.
Interesting. The follow-up question I have for you is when you talk about preparing for exit, what should the with the market everywhere you go, there's yoga studios. There's, I think now what's interesting is now because Pilates was a very kind of fringe thing, but now you're seeing talk about the market dynamics. Is it still early? Are we at the peak? How should people be looking if they're looking into buying a studio?
Oh, in boutique fitness, there's so much runway for growth. It's sad. It's something like 1 in 5 people in the United States works out, which just leaves so much room for growth. And the industry has grown consistently for several decades through all of the trials and tribulations of the 2008 and then COVID. What we've really seen is that to most people, these are mandatory things that they need in their life to be able to function. And so even when money's tight, it's exercise or your gym membership actually becomes your own mental health. And there's nothing that's more important than that. And so it's a very resilient industry. And so I think that's really important. It's a trendy industry, as I think a lot of things are. And looking back over the last couple of decades, you can trace it through Soul Cycle to Orange Theory to Pilates, and maybe what's next is Legree, or more of these like drip IV type businesses where it's a bit more of a local clinic that's operated under a franchise that's able to provide a certain number of services that people in the community might really need and might facilitate in a lot easier way than trying to go through their insurance. There's just a lot of possibilities. And so I'm really excited about it. I love where I am. I've only been doing this particular thing for 6 years now, but I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah. Very, very inspiring. So let's talk about you've piqued the audience's interest. They're listening. And so they're like, okay, I know you offer a free consultation. What types of clients come to you? What are their needs, wants, fears, what are they fed up with to come and work with you? And can you help them?
Oh, obviously every person is different and unique. And at the same time, we all have some of the same struggles. And the things that people are fed up with are always managing people. It's exhausting. And being responsible for all these other people and the compliance that comes with it is truly exhausting. And so that's usually, there's one thing I can say to make people feel like I know how to speak their language. It's just complaining about managing people because it's so relatable. Also, one of the most rewarding things when it works out well and you're able to mentor someone and grow them and develop them. And then maybe that person could even buy your business one day, making sure I'm saying both sides of this. But that's the reality of buying and selling businesses, is that it's very normal. It doesn't need to be, there doesn't have to be a bad reason to sell. People need to sell their businesses all the time for a variety of reasons. And for the most part, it's usually dictated by some other bigger transformation in their life or transition. And so whether it's, for me at my age, there's a lot of feelings about taking care of our parents and making sure that as they grow older, that we're close to them and can take care of them. And sometimes that's challenging. And at the same time, got some young kids. And a lot of times parents will want to sell their business to spend the last 4 years of high school with their kids before they go off to college. Or maybe it's kids go off to college and then the parents are free and it's like, all right, let's go. I'm ready to cash out and go travel the world. And no matter where you are in your process, I think there's someone else at the other complementary point. And when you can match those people up and make a deal happen and see a business survive and even often thrive in a new way and inspire a young person to become an entrepreneur and leave the corporate world, like all of this in my life is a win-win when it's done correctly. And I just want to make it happen more and more.
Interesting. Now, the next question I have for you is because there was this recent book that I read and it was talking about acquiring businesses versus building businesses. And should one person, people listening to this, should they just bootstrap, start up a business, or should they buy and acquire? What are the pros and cons of each one?
It really depends. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of acquiring them. The reason being that it's so much less risky to acquire an existing business, and you can do it with 10% down through an SBA loan.
Mm,
You can count on consistent cash flow and profitability from day one.
mm,
And the way those loans are designed, you should be getting your 10% back in 6 to 8 months, which is just a lot more reliable than starting from scratch. That being said, if you've got something that's very unique and different and it's hard to find something to acquire on the market, by all means, bootstrap away, find what problem you're solving and go solve it for people. But when you can make an acquisition, like you can with so many of these types of businesses, because they really are a service business, a passion project for taking care of people, you can find really wonderful people to take over. And I believe wholeheartedly that stepping into a situation where there's reliable cash flow is better because it's way less risky.
interesting. Another question I have for you is during these exit strategies, how often do you get the question of should they sell to just an outside buyer or kind of what's called having an employee kind of transition into it and gradually they take ownership of it? What are the pros and cons of those two different types of strategies?
There's all kinds of pros and cons to internal versus external, and sometimes those situations are switched. Sometimes there might be an internal person who's offering cash at closing and an external person who's offering funding with some rollover that's going to scale the company in huge way. There's pros and cons to every situation. I think what's really important for people to know, like the bottom line on this, is that the way that you get maximum value is by leveraging the internal buyers against the external buyers and having as many offers as possible, as many people sitting at the table as possible, so that you're really able to stand confidently and draw your lines in the sand and say, this is what I need. And once everything becomes clear, it's who's going to follow through with their offer, who is showing the most promise for what means most to me. For some people, it's their legacy. For some people, it's just about money. For some people, it's a timeline. For most people, it's a combination of all of these things. And so having choices in the matter is what gives you confidence and leverage. And so it's not that internal is bad or external is good or vice versa. They all can be all of it. What matters is that you have choices.
Interesting. So I was for the audience, the Mitch's website will be in the show notes. One thing is you offer listings, and what's interesting is these listings asking prices I was surprised. I was thinking like these studios would be going for the millions, but it's actually 500K some. What's the difference between investing in like a studio versus, for example, real estate? Are there pros and cons? Which one has a better return, tax advantages, risk, etc.?
I got to avoid the tax advantages question because I'm not a CPA, but I grew up in a world where no one taught me until I was much, much older that you could invest in buying businesses. I was taught that it was real estate or stocks and bonds. That was it. And so when I started learning about this when I was like 30, I was blown away by the returns. And I think the reason is because it takes more confidence to make a bet like that, where you're buying a business the success of it is going to sit on your shoulders. And fewer people are willing to do that. And for that reason, I think there's more opportunities and more upside. And what's better than betting on yourself? Especially if you see an opportunity in a business where you know that you have a skill set that's going to add some kind of value. For a lot of young people, it might be that they're good at digital marketing or they're not scared to death of social media. There's a million businesses out there with people who are ready to retire who can't stand the thought of posting anything on social media. There's just opportunity there. And so for every person that's tired of having a boss, there's nothing better than waking up and working for yourself. You'll work harder, you'll care so much more, and you'll be rewarded more. And I'm a huge fan, and I really do. I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything. It doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. I've got lots of wonderful friends that specialize in different industries. But what really matters is that you start to look at your exit strategy as capitalizing on your biggest, most important asset. And if you're not looking at it that way, I hope you have some really awesome other assets, because it's usually the most important one. It's our other baby, and it deserves the same kind of attention.
Interesting. We have around 5, 6 minutes remaining, and talk about, because this call is being recorded, you're in Spain, and you have location, you have time, you have financial. So what was the talk about for the audience that are looking to create this type of freedom? What is the mindset or skill sets that you need to be able to create this life that you've designed?
Oh man, I wish we had so much more time to talk about this, because this has been the most life-altering thing that I've ever done. 6 months ago, we've been planning this for about a year, but we decided to do what we call the family semester abroad. My kids are 11 and 8. It's something we had wanted to do since COVID, honestly. It was the first moment that we felt like we could do that. And we really wanted to come to Europe. And my wife speaks Spanish pretty well. Mine's decent. But we wanted to post up somewhere where we could travel around Europe as much as possible, live in a safe place without a car, make it easy. And so we chose Madrid. And at the end of 6 months now, we've just signed a long-term lease for an apartment in Sitges, just south of Barcelona. It's this little beach town, 30 minutes south of Barcelona, that is just stunningly beautiful. And the water's so clear and the people are so kind. And my kids are learning Spanish and French and Catalan, and they're putting places on a map that they would never have recognized even 6 months ago. What it took for me to get here was people looking at me like I was crazy. When I started talking about this and wanting to do this, there were a lot of people really close to me that were afraid of it. Even the people who loved me the most, like they didn't want me to leave. But I really felt like it was something that we needed to do to expand our horizons. And as last year started to wrap up and things happened with the election and everything like that, like I just feel like it's gotten a bit scarier in a way that makes me really happy that I'm here. And it's a weird feeling safer. Like I've never been somewhere where I felt safer. And here I am, where like I'll let my kids go wander blocks and blocks in a very busy city because I'm not afraid of anything here in a weird new way. And that has just fueled this desire to keep traveling and to keep learning and to keep meeting new people. And I got to go to Singapore last month and meet all kinds of new people and see all kinds of things that I'd never seen before. I went to Doha. I'm slated to go to Riyadh next year, Amsterdam later this fall, all for work. And it's just speaking at conferences and networking and gaining a much greater understanding of our shared humanity, and that all people are equal. And if we could just see that in each other and love and respect each other a little bit more, I think a lot of things would be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I echo the same sentiment. And I think but my wife and I were actually also considering fleeing the country, given it's just the scary times we live in these days. That's a subject for another. So if people are listening to this podcast and they were wanting to contact you or learn more from you, how can they do that?
Everything is at Boutique Fitness Broker. So that's our website. It's our Instagram. You can email me, Mitch at Boutique Fitness Broker. I feel like my cell phone's all over the internet. You can probably find it pretty easily. Just text or call. I'm always happy to help however I can.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And really fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.